I won a decent amount of money and thought it would finally bring relief. Instead, my family started acting like it was already spent and that I was just holding it for them. I had won a small settlement from an old job I left 2 years ago. Nothing crazy, no courtroom drama. Just a class action lawsuit that I barely remembered joining. Some labor violation thing. They had misclassified workers like me as contractors when we were clearly employees. I filled out the paperwork online and forgot about it. Then out of nowhere, a plain white envelope showed up in my mailbox. I thought it was junk. Almost tossed it in the recycling without opening it. But inside was a check. Real money. 42 grand before taxes. 31 after. Still more than I had seen in my account at one time in my entire life. And let me tell you, it felt like a breath I had not realized I was holding finally got let out. That money meant I could fix the leak in the roof. It meant I could stop ignoring those low-balanced alerts. It meant I did not have to keep choosing between new tires or a dental cleaning. I could finally sleep a little easier, maybe even take a damn weekend off without guilt gnawing at me. It was not life-changing. I was not quitting my job. I was not buying some new house or flying off to Cancun. But it gave me something I had not felt in years: space. Breathing room. A cushion between me and panic. I remember the exact moment it hit me. I was sitting at the diner by the interstate, sipping bad coffee from a chipped mug, staring at that check like it might disappear. I thought about keeping it to myself. Just quietly deposit it, make a few smart moves, let it ride. But I got excited. That was my mistake. I called my sister. Told her I had good news. At first, she was happy. She said I deserved it. Said, about time something good happened for you. I believed her. Then she asked how much. I told her. She whistled low and said, damn, that is a blessing. And then came the first little crack in the smooth surface. She said, you know, if you got some extra now, maybe you could help out Mom with her heating bill. I laughed. Not because it was funny, just because it felt like a quick turn. But I shrugged and said, yeah, maybe. That was all. Nothing dramatic. Just a thought. A suggestion. But you know what they say, pressure never starts loud. And I should have seen what was coming next. I do not have a big family. Just me, my sister Beth, and our mom. My dad passed when I was 17. Since then, it was kind of an unspoken thing that I was supposed to step up. And for the most part, I did. I never made a show of it. Just worked, kept the lights on, and helped where I could. So when Beth brought up Mom's heating bill, it did not sound unreasonable. It was winter. I knew Mom's place ran cold. So I paid it. No questions. It was a couple $100, and it felt good to be able to cover it without scraping. But that was just the beginning. 2 days later, my cousin Tyler called. Now, Tyler never calls unless he needs something. But this time, it was all, hey man. Heard the good news. I had not told him anything. So clearly, Beth had. He said, man, I am proud of you. You finally caught a break. And then, just like that, he slipped it in. Hey, you think you could spot me 500 until next month? I had a car thing come up. I hesitated. Not because I did not want to help, but because it felt fast. Too fast. I asked what the car issue was. He paused, then said something about tires. Or maybe brakes. It got fuzzy real quick. I told him I had to think about it. He laughed and said, come on, man, you just got over 30 grand. What's 500 between family? That line hit weird. I knew the number. I knew what was in my account. But hearing someone else throw it out like that, like it was just community knowledge, I ended the call politely. Said I would call him back. But I sat there afterward, holding the phone like it had grown teeth. It was spreading. The next day, I got a text from my Aunt Sherry. She asked how I was doing. I had not heard from her since last Christmas, and even then, she just asked if I could bring dessert. Now she was suddenly checking in. She said, Beth mentioned you got a little windfall. Good for you. Listen, my hours got cut at work, and I am trying to keep my boy in that after-school program. Any chance you could pitch in a little? She even added a crying emoji at the end. I did not know what to say. I just stared at my screen, feeling something twist in my stomach. These people were not being cruel. They were not yelling or accusing or demanding. But there was this heaviness under every word. Like they had already decided what I should do. And worse, like it was not even a question. Just a matter of time. By the end of the week, different people had reached out to me. Some family, some barely family. All of them with the same tone. Casual, warm, and lined with quiet expectations. It was like the moment money touched my hands, it stopped being mine. They said things like, you are doing well now, or it is not like you are struggling. And on paper, they were not wrong. But something about it started to feel off. Like I was not being asked, I was being assigned. And I could not shake the feeling that something bigger was heading my way. It all shifted when my cousin Trina invited me over for dinner. Nothing fancy, just burgers on the grill and a few beers out back. She said she wanted to catch up, and honestly, I welcomed something normal. I figured maybe it would be nice to hang out without feeling like a walking ATM. For the first hour, it was easy. We talked about old high school stories, how our uncle used to fall asleep during cookouts with a beer in his hand, how Trina once broke a window with a football and blamed it on the neighbor's kid. It felt good, familiar. Then her husband Kyle came out with a second round of drinks. He clinked bottles with me and said, "The man of the hour. Big shot." With this wide grin. I laughed and said, I wouldn't go that far. But then Kyle said something that made Trina stiffen just a little. He looked right at me and said, "So what's the plan with all that cash? You buying a boat? Or are we all just waiting for our cut?" He said it like a joke, but it was not a joke. I tried to smile, but something in my jaw locked. There is no cut, man. It is just enough to catch up on a few things. Kyle nodded, but there was that glint in his eye, like he had just poked a bruise on purpose. Trina tried to smooth it over. She said, "He is just kidding. You know Kyle." Then she added, "But seriously, if you ever decide to invest in anything, we've been looking into flipping a house. Just saying." That was the moment it hit me. They did not see it as my win. They saw it as the family's win. Like I had pulled the prize out of a cereal box, and now everyone wanted their turn with it. It was not about helping mom anymore. It was not about someone being short on rent. It was about the idea that if one of us got something, anything, it had to be redistributed. Even when they smiled, even when they said, "Just kidding," I could feel it. The pressure, the slow, creeping shift from congratulations to "How are you going to make this fair?" Over the next week, the tone kept changing. Beth started calling more often. At first, she would just ask how I was doing. Then she started dropping little hints. Things like, "If you help Trina and Kyle with that house, they could pay you back double." Or, "It would really mean a lot to mom if you did something special for her birthday this year." Like something big. She has been through a lot. I felt myself start to shrink a little. Every call, every text, chipped away at the excitement I used to feel. That brief spark of peace I had felt when I got the check, it was gone. Now, every dollar felt like it had eyes on it. Every choice I made felt like it was being measured by people who had not been around when things were hard, but suddenly had opinions now that things were looking up. And deep down, I started asking myself the question I had been trying to avoid. How much of me do they think they own? I kept telling myself it was just in my head, that maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But then mom called. Now, my mom, God love her, is not a bad person. But she has this way of making guilt sound like wisdom. She is not loud about it. She is soft, gentle, the kind of voice that feels like a hug but tightens like a noose. She started with small talk. Asked if I had been sleeping better now that you are not so stressed about bills. I said, yeah, kind of. And then she said, "That's what money does. It eases the mind. And when one person has peace, they should help bring it to the rest of the family too. That's what good people do." Just like that. No request. No demands. Just a quiet sermon wrapped in motherly concern. I stayed quiet for a second. Then I said something about being careful, about wanting to make smart choices so I did not end up back where I started. And she said, "Well, that's fine. But you do not want to hoard it, either. Money is meant to move, especially when people are in need." There it was again. The idea that what I had was not really mine. That it was borrowed, held in trust for everyone else. That weekend, Beth came by the house. She brought groceries I never asked for and a folder full of brochures. I looked at them and raised an eyebrow. "What is all this?" She smiled like she had planned this for weeks. "Just ideas," she said. "Mom's house has been needing updates for years. I found a few contractors. She could really use a kitchen remodel. And maybe new windows. She is getting older, you know." I nodded slowly, flipping through the papers. "And who's paying for all this?" Beth laughed, like I had made a joke. "You are. I mean, not all of it. But you could front it, right? Just until I figure out my finances. Or maybe we split it. Like a family project." I stared at her. "You mean I cover it?" She shrugged. "Well, yeah, you're in the best position." That was the moment something inside me shifted. I looked at my sister, this person I had grown up with, fought with, shared birthday cakes and old inside jokes, and I did not recognize her. Not completely. She was smiling, but there was something hard behind her eyes. I realized something then, something I had been trying not to see. It was never just about the money. It was about control, about what they thought I owed, and who they thought I was supposed to be now that I had a little extra padding in my account. They did not ask what I needed. They did not ask what I wanted to do with it. They already knew the answer they expected. And suddenly, it was not a suggestion anymore. It was a script, and I was supposed to play my part. It happened on a Wednesday. I was just getting home from work, boots still muddy, back aching like it always does after a long shift. I was standing in my kitchen, reheating leftover chili, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Beth. "Hey, can you come by Mom's tomorrow night? Everyone's getting together to talk about the house stuff. Bring your checkbook." That was the message. Right there. No if you want. No do you mind. Just a directive. With a smiley face. I stared at it for a full minute. My chili popped in the microwave. I did not move. Something about the way she phrased it just snapped the last bit of patience in me. I could feel it bubbling. Not anger exactly, but this deep, old ache. Like a splinter that had been sitting under the skin too long, finally pressing against the nerve. I sat down at the kitchen table. My boots left streaks on the floor. I did not care, and I texted back one word. No. No explanation. No apology. Just that. She responded instantly. "Wait, what? Then? Are you joking? Then? We already told Mom. She's excited. You said you'd help." But that was the thing. I never said that. I had nodded. I had been polite. I had listened. But I had never agreed. Not really. I let the silence stretch. Then my phone rang. Beth again. I let it go to voicemail. She called back. I picked up. Her voice was sharp this time. No smile, no sisterly warmth. She said, "You know how much this means to Mom." I said, "I know." She said, "Then why are you being difficult?" And that did it. I told her straight. I said, "Because you are not asking me. You are telling me. Because no one asked if I was okay with this. They just handed me the bill. Like I owe it." She was quiet. Then she said, "But we're family." I nodded to myself. There it was again. "That doesn't mean you get to decide what I do with my money," I said. Calm. Steady. My voice did not shake, but something inside me did. She exhaled sharply, like I had insulted her. "I cannot believe you are acting like this," she said. "You finally get something, and suddenly you think you are better than us." That one stung. Not because it was true, but because I had expected it. Like I knew deep down that saying no, even once, would flip the whole story. I told her I had to go, that my food was getting cold. She said, "So that's it?" I said, "Yeah, that's it." I hung up, and I sat there in the quiet, listening to the microwave beep. The weight of it all hit me at once. Not just the money, but the years leading up to this moment. All the times I had been the helper, the reliable one, the one who never asked for much, the one who always made room for everyone else's problems. And now, the one who said no. It should have felt freeing. Instead, it felt like I had just declared war. 3 days went by after that call with Beth. Dead silence. No texts. No missed calls. No sarcastic messages about family meetings or, funny, reminders to bring my wallet. It felt strange. Not peaceful. Just quiet in a way that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Then Sunday hit. I was changing the oil on my truck when I heard tires crunch on the gravel out front. I peeked around the hood and saw a familiar beige SUV pulling in Mom's. She got out slow, bundled in her heavy coat, holding something in her hands. A Tupperware container. I wiped my hands on a rag and walked up. "Hey," I said. She smiled, tight-lipped. "Thought I'd bring you some of that stew you like." She had not done that in years. I knew something was coming. The stew was just the appetizer. We went inside. She set the container on the counter and stood there like she was waiting to be invited into a conversation. I poured her a glass of water. We sat. It started slow, asking about work, how my truck was holding up, if I had been sleeping all right. Then came the sigh. She looked down at her hands and said, "I know things have been a little tense with your sister." I nodded. She said, "She's just trying to help me, honey. You know how old this house is. The foundation is cracking. There's mold in the basement. I'm scared it's going to get worse." I said I understood. I really did. Then she pulled out an envelope. "This is the estimate. Just take a look." I opened it. My stomach dropped. The total was just over $18,000. She said, "It doesn't have to be all at once. We were thinking you could start with maybe 10, just to get the worst of it done. Just 10. Just. I set the paper down and rubbed my temples. I can't, I said. She tilted her head like she had not heard me right. Can't what? I can't give you $10,000. She blinked, caught somewhere between disbelief and disappointment. I thought you said you wanted to help. I thought that's what the money was for. I shook my head. The money is for me. For once. She did not say anything right away. Just sipped her water, lips tight. Then she said something I did not expect. I raised you better than this. And there it was. Not anger. Not rage. Just that one, loaded sentence. Like choosing not to hand over a third of what I had meant I had failed her as a son. Like my worth as a man was tied to how quickly I bent. I stood up. My hands were shaking. I said, I know you think I'm being selfish. I get that. But I'm not the bad guy here. Her voice went flat. So you're really saying no? I nodded. Yeah, I am. She stood, grabbed her coat, and walked to the door. No hug. No goodbye. Just a quiet exit that said everything her mouth did not. I watched her drive off. And I swear, that gravel never sounded louder. That night, I sat in the dark for a long time. No music. No TV. Just the hum of the fridge and the weight of what had just happened. This was not just about money anymore. It was about identity. About who I was allowed to be, and what they thought I was worth when I stopped giving. And I had a feeling the fallout was just beginning. Monday morning, my phone blew up. First it was Beth. Then Trina. Then Kyle. Then a number I did not recognize. Probably Aunt Sherry's new cell. I let every single one of them go to voicemail. By lunch, I had a dozen texts. You really upset Mom. She was crying when she left your place. You're better than this. We all thought you were different. Every message came coated in syrup, but you could taste the venom underneath. They were not checking on me. They were circling the wagons, closing ranks. And I was outside the circle now. By evening, the tone had shifted again. Now they were not just disappointed. They were offended. Offended that I had not played along. Offended that I had broken the unspoken agreement. That I would always say yes. That I would always be the stable one. The reliable one. The one who never rocked the boat. And I started to understand something I probably should have seen a long time ago. It was not really about love. It was about usefulness. As long as I was quietly helping, I was good. I was praised. I was respected. Not loudly, but enough to keep me compliant. Enough to keep me giving. But the second I pulled back, the second I put a fence around what was mine, that is when they showed me what they really thought. It came to a head that Thursday. I was driving home from work when I saw Beth's SUV parked in my driveway. I groaned out loud. I almost kept going, but I pulled in anyway. She was standing by my front steps, arms crossed. She did not even wait for me to shut the truck door. We need to talk. I said, I don't think we do. She followed me to the porch. You embarrassed Mom. You made her feel small. I turned and looked her dead in the eye. No, I made a decision. That's different. Beth stepped closer. We are your family. We've always had your back. I laughed. Could not help it. Really? When? When I was picking up extra shifts so you could borrow $2,000 for Kyle's truck? When Mom needed help with rent and I emptied my account? Or was it when I covered Trina's credit cards and nobody even said thank you? She flinched. Just slightly. You think I owe you all because I got lucky once, I said. But you were never around when I was broke and eating canned beans for dinner. Beth's jaw tightened. Her voice dropped low. So that's it. You're cutting everyone off? I shook my head. No, I'm setting a boundary. She stared at me for a long second. Then she said, wow, you really think that money makes you better than us now? And that is when I understood the game completely. It was never about help. It was about control. About keeping me in a role they were comfortable with. Provider, fixer, background character in someone else's story. Beth turned to leave. Don't be surprised when nobody's there next time you need something. I said, that's the difference, Beth. I never expected you to be. She paused, just for a second. Then she got in her SUV and drove away. And just like that, the last mask dropped. The days after Beth's visit were the quietest I had known in years. No texts. No guilt-laced voicemails. No sudden emergencies I was supposed to solve. Just silence. Like I had fallen off the map. And for the first time, I could actually hear myself think. I started sleeping better. Started cooking real meals again. I stopped checking my phone every 10 minutes, waiting for the next family obligation to drop like a weight around my neck. Funny thing is, I thought I would feel lonely. But I did not. Not really. Because here is the truth I had been avoiding for way too long. Most of my relationships with them were built on what I could give, not who I was. And now that I had said no, they were gone. There was no "we miss you." No, let's talk this out. Just a complete shutdown, like I had been erased from the group chat and no one wanted to admit it. I kept thinking back to when the check first came. That sense of relief. That breath of fresh air. Back then, I thought the money itself was the gift. But it wasn't. The gift was the clarity. See, having money did not make me selfish. It made me aware. Aware of just how much of my life had been spent managing other people's burdens. Aware of how quickly people turn when your boundaries stop benefiting them. That weekend, I went for a drive. Just me, the highway, and some old country playing low on the radio. I pulled off at this overlooked spot I used to visit back when I was broke and stressed out and just needed to feel small under the sky. And I thought about the way my life used to revolve around making sure everyone else stayed afloat, even if it meant I was drowning. I thought about the time I skipped a needed car repair to loan Aunt Sherry money. The time I maxed out a credit card to pay off Kyle's emergency bills. The birthday I spent eating gas station pizza because I had chipped in for Mom's new fridge. I had called it love, but looking back now, it felt more like leverage. And once that leverage was gone, once I stopped giving, they stopped pretending. I leaned back on the hood of my truck, staring at the sky, and something settled in my chest. Not bitterness, not even sadness, just peace. For the first time, I was not anybody's backup plan. Not the fixer, not the ATM. I was just me, and that was enough. It was early evening when I heard the knock. Not a neighbor, not a delivery. It was that kind of knock, slow, deliberate, meant to be heard. I opened the door, and there stood Kyle. Hands in his pockets, head ducked like he was trying to come off humble. But his eyes gave him away. Same smirk, just dialed down. I leaned on the frame, waiting. He cleared his throat. We were wondering if we could talk. I raised an eyebrow. We. Then Beth stepped out from behind him, followed by Trina, followed by my mother. I stared at the lineup on my porch. It felt like a family reunion, but not the kind with cake and folding chairs. Mom spoke first. She said, "We've all had some time to cool off, and I think we just misunderstood each other." Beth nodded. "We did not mean to make you feel pressured." Kyle added, "We were just excited for you. That is all." They all stood there, like actors waiting for applause. Like that little show of unity was supposed to make me drop the past week and come crawling back with a checkbook in hand. I let the silence sit. Then I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "I'll make this simple," I said. "I'm not angry. I'm not holding a grudge. But I've learned a lot this past week. And what I've learned is this. I'm allowed to have something for myself." Trina opened her mouth, probably to argue, but I held up a hand. I helped when I could. For years, I put myself on hold so other people could keep moving. But that season is over. I'm done giving just because it's expected. Beth said, "We're not asking for handouts." "No," I said, because last I checked, I was cornered, and told I owed the family. That's not asking. That's demanding, with a smile. Mom looked tired. Not sad. Just worn down. "I just wish you would not treat us like strangers." "I'm not," I said. "I'm treating you like adults." Kyle let out a breath and said, "So what? You're cutting us off." I shook my head. "No. I'm telling you where the line is. I'm happy to be part of this family, but I'm not your safety net. I'm not your piggy bank. If you call me, it better be because you want me, not my money." I took a step back toward the door. If that means fewer calls, fewer visits, then so be it. They stood there, unsure what to say, like the script had ended and nobody knew the next line. I opened the door and paused. "By the way," I added, "I still have that check. Most of it." Beth looked surprised. "You haven't spent it?" "Nope," I said, "because I don't need stuff. I just needed space." And then I shut the door. Not with anger, not with pride, with peace, because I knew what was coming next. And this time, I was ready for it. Weeks passed. The silence that followed was not as cold as before. It was just quieter, honest. Beth stopped texting. Kyle stopped showing up unannounced. Trina posted a vague status about some people forgetting where they come from, but I let it pass. Even Mom, who used to call twice a week, backed off. She sent a birthday card with a simple note. No guilt, no asks. Just hope you're well. Love you, Mom. And for once, that felt real. I used the money slowly. Not on flashy things. Just small repairs around the house. Fixed the roof. Replaced the dryer that had been squealing for months. I booked a weekend trip to a cabin a few hours out. Nothing fancy, but enough to sit by the water with a mug of coffee and let the stillness soak in. Most of the money stayed in savings. And that felt good, too. Not like hoarding, not like fear, just like choice. Because that is what all of this had really been about. Choice. For years, I had moved through life reacting, putting out fires, solving problems I did not create. I gave because it felt right, because I thought that is what love looked like. But love, real love, is not measured in how much you can drain yourself to keep someone else comfortable. It is not about handing over your peace just to avoid someone else's discomfort. And family. Family should not be something that only shows up with a handout and a smile that disappears the second you say no. I used to think having money would fix everything. But what it really gave me was perspective. It showed me who was standing beside me and who was just standing close enough to reach into my pocket. It taught me that being generous is a strength, but having boundaries is a survival skill. And most of all, it taught me this. Just because you love people does not mean you have to bleed for them. So no, $31,000 did not change my life. But it did change me. And that has been worth more than any check ever could.